You're listening to vNacelle Insights, where we bring you valuable information on accelerating business value, business transitions, employee engagement, visual process mapping, self-awareness, and entrepreneurial excellence. Hello, everyone. This is Kevin with vNacelle. Today, we're talking with Laura Chiesman of First Wave Financial. First Wave Financial is a transition roadmap developer client of vNacelle that has successfully gone through the TRD process, as well as having become an advisor to vNacelle on other TRDs. Great to talk to you.
Yes, you too. Nice to meet you.
You as well. Elizabeth has said many great things about you and Tom.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, she's wonderful. We just had a great call with her this morning with a new prospect, so it's nice.
Is that on the new TRD?
Yes. Uh-huh.
That's
yeah,
good.
So
That's what I wanted to talk about
you?
today. I'm in St. Louis area.
Yeah, perfect. Oh, great.
And you guys are in Florida? Is that, or California?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, Florida. That's right.
Florida. Yep. East Coast, just east of Orlando.
So, Laura, could you share with us a little bit about First Wave Financial's transition roadmap developer and how it has evolved over the past few years?
Well, our actual, we're in year 3, and I would say that our original plan involved a 2-year transition out, and we've worked our way through those first 2 years, and it went wonderfully well, and Tom and I continue to enjoy working together, and he continues to be very involved in certain activities here. And it's a little different of a relationship, but he is helping still with things like business management business management issues, not on a day-to-day basis at all. And then, but his main focus is business development and writing, developing some new unique processes that we are going out into the world with. And then, occasionally still available to me in a mentoring capacity, which is a huge benefit for me and for the company to have his years of experience in the care that he has for this company and the team. He's still very engaged.
So was it you or Tom who first became acquainted with Elizabeth and vNacelle?
It was Tom. We had met Elizabeth through Strategic Coach. Tom and Elizabeth met in a class, and we started working with her on one project quite a few years ago, and then actually engaged her on a routine annual basis to do our strategic planning as a firm. So just developing and delegating to the team and working on specific strategic projects every year. So we're very well acquainted with Elizabeth and her team and the way they work through projects and planning and issues. So then when Tom became interested in the idea of transitioning and selling the business or moving the business to a different structure, he had started kind of working through it on his own initially. He's got a lot of experience in business succession and projects like that, personally and helping others. But he realized early on in his journey that he was making the common move that happens a lot, is that he was starting with tactics and advice from specialists without really understanding the why and who before getting into the details. So he reached out to Elizabeth and started through that process, and it's really a great, satisfying experience for him. And then eventually, as I became aware of the project and got involved in it, it's just been a great experience for all of us.
So the first phase of the transition roadmap developer is that prospection retreat, where the leadership and vNacelle get to know more about each other and what happens in the business. What can you tell us about that initial engagement with vNacelle?
Tom and Cindy and Elizabeth and probably someone else from the vNacelle team, I went through those early steps together. So I was not involved in the initial steps of that part of the process. And then later, as we walk towards the solutions. As he decided what direction he was going to go through. He worked through all that kind of stuff before I was really involved in the process. So I know they went through quite I think the early part, the big thing in the early part of the planning and working through the TRD was the reach of how far was he really getting all the way out, to whom was he leaving it, and what was important to him to leave behind. I think I don't like to necessarily use the word legacy because he's so involved, but what did he wanted to walk away happy and proud of the work he had done in the past and leaving everyone in great shape on his way out the door. We have a great business here with clients that we're very close to and have worked together with for many, many years, and a team that we're very dedicated to. And part of Tom's main focus was that he walked through that with all the people who are going to be affected by the change and by the transition, and leave everyone whole and hopefully better off than they had been before. So they worked through a lot of that before I even was aware that all that work was happening. So it must have been pretty efficient because I was usually involved deeply in all the activities around here. So they did a great job of handling that. Sort of led very well by Elizabeth.
That's one of the interesting things about the TRD is it looks at everybody's thoughts, feelings, and desires in the process of transition, more than just the owner. In a lot of transitions, it's just the owner that makes the decision. Right. And the TRD allows for everyone to have their input because a lot of times those taking over may not want to have the same vision as the owner. Right. So how did this help match everyone's vision up?
I think once Tom was secure in his vision of how he wanted it to all play out, the first step that involved me was he sat down with me and had a conversation offering up the idea and really bringing up for the first time to me what was fairly startling idea that he was considering transitioning out of the business and passing the business on. He asked me if I was interested, and I was very interested. And we had, it was a structured conversation, walking through what we call a value conversation. How I might want things to look a year from now, looking back, and what was I worried about, what opportunities would I be excited about, and what strengths did I think I could bring to the table to overcome the obstacles, take advantage of opportunities, and get to the vision that I was kind of live on the spot crafting for myself. And so that was a really great, really exciting conversation for me. And it was now looking back, I can see that he was well prepared for that conversation because he had done so much prep work on the front end with Elizabeth. So that really provided a nice framework and foundation for me to slide in and begin participating in those conversations. I could have said, no, I'm not interested, and that would have been, we would have had a conversation around then what might happen next. And I know that he was prepared for either direction that the conversation might go. So those first early days were, both exciting, and they also felt well prepared for. Nothing felt like it was left up to chance, if you know what I mean. They had done, yeah.
So what are your feelings about the transition roadmap developer process and what it was like going through it and how it prepared you not only for the transition, but for a future transition that may occur when you're ready to move on?
Oh, I feel really educated by the process. I've been a student, I would say, of Elizabeth's approach, of vNacelle's approach to strategic planning and building, going through the entrepreneurial flight process. So we're great around here about documenting processes, having good ways of delegating across the team. And I was used to that on a day-to-day kind of running of the business approach, and then applying those same skills to a transition. I mean, it was we approached it very much like a project, and once we'd made up our minds about what we were going to do, then we had a series of steps that we had to go through. Everything that involves, the financial aspect, the legal side, accounting side, communication to the team, communication to the clients, and then the timeline of even once the transition was kicked off, then how long would we proceed with both Tom and I in place? What were we going to do? We were going to be doing the same thing side by side for a year, or handing off certain duties between us. And so that was all very structured. I learned a lot about it. Some of it's very applicable to me just in my new position for delegating some of the work that I used to do. So I've already had my own little transition and succession from my previous position. So that's a great experience. So I was sort of getting it from both sides, being transitioned to and then transitioning to other people at the same time. So I do feel like that's an ongoing process. That's a part of growing my team, and so I learned some ways of doing that even more successfully and efficiently. And I imagine when it gets to the stage, I haven't spent too much time thinking about my succession out, as I'm still, really enjoying and warming up to my transition in. But yeah, I feel like I'm going to keep using some of the things I learned in the early days of this transition throughout my career at this stage, and then I'm sure I'll be able to reuse those, and hopefully using that type of kind of management style that we employ during the transition on a day-to-day basis here. I hope to have in mind the continuing documentation and strengthening and building of the team over the years to support whatever the next stage is when it comes, whether it's big growth or an eventual transition. I think we'll be really prepared for it.
That is one of the great things about the TRD process, is that it instills a culture of change, a positive change within the company that sets everyone up to be prepared for moving in and out, and then also moves strongly toward employee engagement, which is one of the other processes or services that vNacelle provides. So now that you've gone through your transition, it's my understanding that you're working with vNacelle on a new engagement with another company that's going through a TRD. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what your involvement is?
Yes. So we have routinely over the years as financial planners and wealth managers, we act as a wealth coach for our clients. We have many friends or people in the community who are business owners, small business owners, and through the years they've come to us for help, and we've walked them through certain processes or times of life, whether it's looking for financing or more on kind of a consultative one-off basis, but we didn't have a process built around it. And when we successfully walked through the transition roadmap development process in our own transition, it really became blindingly obvious that we could offer this service to other people who'd come to us for help through the years. So we are actively doing that together now. We have a client who is really in the early stages of planning how they might develop their team and company enough to be able to then take the next step of transitioning, whether that be to a third party or to the existing internal team. And so we're working side by side with vNacelle on this process with this client. And it's really fun to be able to, we can with all enthusiasm and confidence describe the world that we know this person and this couple is in, that we know the dangers, opportunities, and strengths that they're facing, that they have on their plate, because we've been there, we've been through it, and we've experienced walking through that process. So it's really a joy to be able to bring them through that same process and watch them, reap the benefits of it and get to a stage of clarity about what their next steps are going to be. And what we've found to be really effective is saving them from going out there and taking kind of one-off solutions that might come to them through the marketplace, whether it's a banker or a venture capitalist, a tax person who has some great idea. Hey, you ought to structure like this, and people often go down a road and start spending money and time and that precious energy on solutions before they really know where they're headed, before they have their roadmap in place. So this group that we're working with now had already gone off kind of that direction before, started a process and then pulled back because I don't think they had everything in place to make a successful transition. So we're kind of midway through the process with them now, and it's a really great experience.
What would you tell business owners and CEOs out there about the TRD that they would need to know to make that sound decision in choosing vNacelle as a partner in their transition?
For me, what's most impactful about it is the idea. It goes really hand in hand with the way we approach planning on another level with our clients, whether individual or business owners. We start with what's important to them, generally important to them, most important to them in life, in business and family relationships. And that is really where vNacelle starts with the transition roadmap developer. It starts with what and who is most important to you, and from there builds off into all the, even before you dig into all the details and the discovery, it starts right there. That's the first area of discovery and discussion. And I find that is confidence building for the people involved, because a lot of these small businesses, you may very well be supporting 3 generations of your family, right? You could have your own generation, your children. Sometimes people are supporting their parents, or they've got children and grandchildren involved in the business. So there is a lot of, it's personal, and there's a lot of responsibility on the shoulders of the business owner. So I think getting that all up out front, starting with the why and the who, and then once you've gotten that buttoned down and everybody has had their say and shared their feelings, and some of these are feelings maybe and thoughts and needs that have not been expressed before for various reasons. Sometimes it's strictly just time, and having someone who's experienced in coaching people through conversations like that. Elizabeth's great at uncovering the truth about what people want. So I think if I was to put it succinctly to someone, it would just be that we're going to start with what's important to you and who is important to you, and go from there to visualizing where you might end up, and in the middle there'll be the steps to get you there. So it really covers there's a whole cycle that you'll go through, and it makes from the very first conversation that is evident. And me as a business owner and a person who's been in business a long time, I'm very comfortable when I feel that someone has a process, or I can see and prove that someone has a process they're taking me through. They're not making it up as they go. And so I think that's a really key and important piece that people can understand, that we're walking them through a tried and true system to get them to the results that they want, or the one they may not even know what the results they want are yet, but we're going to help them identify those.
That's great. Thank you so much. That was well said.
Thank you.
So in closing, is there anything else you would like to add or share with?
I'd like to say that there's value in every step of the process, including, as I mentioned, that initial conversation, that there's no commitment made in the first conversation, but after 45 minutes or an hour of your time with the key people involved, whether that's the partners or spouses who own the business and are who kind of the key decision makers, that hour of your time is very revealing, very valuable, and definitely a great first step to take. And I think people walk away even from that initial conversation with some clarity, excitement, and the beginnings of that feeling of confidence that they got, that there is a path they can follow to save them from what can otherwise be a very confusing pitfall, likely to fall into some pitfalls without having a process like this in place. So I think, again, that's very clear from the very first conversation. So I encourage people to take advantage of that opportunity to have a great high-level conversation like this.
Unfortunately, that's all the time we have today. I want to thank you, Laura, for joining us in what has been a very informative look into the Transition Roadmap Developer and the relationship between vNacelle and First Wave Financial. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. You can find more information on First Wave Financial on their website, which is firstwavefinancial.com, or you can call them at 321-280-9016. For more information on the Transition Roadmap Developer and the other services provided by vNacelle, please check out our website at www.vnacelle.com. Again, that's www.vnacelle.com. Thank you all and have a wonderful day.